Right now, as you watch this video, someone somewhere is asking, who created the universe? And they expect an answer. A name. A beginning. A story that makes sense. But what if I told you that the Buddha, after reaching enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, refused to answer that question? Not because he didn't know, but because the question itself was part of the problem. The human mind craves origins. It needs a starting point, a creator, a narrative that gives shape to the mystery. It needs a why to feel safe in an uncertain world. But when the Buddha awakened, he didn't find a beginning or an end. He found something far more profound, an infinite flow, a silence so vast it leaves no room for a single origin. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about existence itself. This isn't just philosophy. This is a direct invitation to see reality as it truly is. Let me take you back. 2,500 years ago, in ancient India, spiritual seekers were obsessed with cosmic questions. Where did we come from? Who made us? What happens after death? These questions consumed them. And when a young prince named Siddhartha left his palace in search of truth, everyone expected him to return with answers. Divine revelations. Cosmic blueprints. But that's not what happened. After 6 years of extreme practices, after nearly dying from starvation, after sitting beneath a tree and refusing to move until he understood the nature of reality itself, the Buddha opened his eyes. And what he saw was shocking. There was no cosmic architect. No divine clockmaker. No moment of creation frozen in time. Instead, he saw an endless process. A universe that wasn't created once, long ago, but is being created right now. In this very moment. Just like a thought that appears and vanishes. Just like your breath that is born and dies every single second. The universe, according to the Buddha, doesn't have an absolute beginning. Everything arises from causes and conditions. Everything is connected in an eternal dance of movement and change. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Buddha was once approached by a wanderer named Malankiyaputta, who demanded answers to 10 metaphysical questions. Is the universe eternal? Is it finite? Does the soul exist after death? Does it not exist? The Buddha's response was brilliant. He told a parable. Imagine a man struck by a poisoned arrow. Before allowing the doctor to remove it, he insists on knowing, who shot this arrow? What family does he belong to? What kind of wood is the arrow made from? What type of feathers are on it? The Buddha said, this man would die before getting his answers. In the same way, if we wait to understand the origin of the universe before we address our suffering, we will waste our entire lives. Because the real question isn't where the universe came from. The real question is, why do we suffer? And how can we be free? This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. The Buddha didn't reject these cosmic questions because they were unimportant. He set them aside because they were unanswerable through speculation, and because they distract us from what truly matters. Liberation from suffering right here, right now. So what did the Buddha actually teach about the universe? He taught something called dependent origination, or pratatya samutpada. This principle states that nothing exists independently. Everything arises in dependence on causes and conditions. There is no first cause. No uncaused cause. No prime mover standing outside the system. Think about it this way. When did the wave begin? You might say when the wind touched the water. But when did the wind begin? From differences in temperature. And when did temperature begin? From the sun. And when did the sun begin? From collapsing cosmic dust. And when did that begin? The question never ends. Because there is no absolute beginning. There is only this infinite web of interdependence, where everything affects everything else, where nothing stands alone, where the universe is not a thing that was made, but a process that is constantly unfolding. The Buddha called this thusness, or tathata. Reality as it is. Not as we think it should be. Not as our stories demand it to be. Just this. Just now. This moment arising from countless causes, dissolving into countless effects. But here's what makes this teaching revolutionary. When you truly understand that the universe has no separate creator, something shifts inside you. You stop looking outside yourself for answers. You stop waiting for some external force to save you or give your life meaning. Because you realize, you are not separate from the universe. You are not a creation observing creation. You are the universe observing itself. Every atom in your body was forged in the heart of a dying star. Every breath you take connects you to trees thousands of miles away. Every thought you have ripples through the field of consciousness that we all share. There is no you and the universe. There is only this seamless, unbroken flow of existence. The Buddha wasn't teaching atheism. He wasn't saying there are no gods or divine beings. In Buddhist cosmology, gods exist. But even they are subject to the same law of dependent origination. Even they are not permanent. Even they didn't create the universe. They are part of it, just like everything else. This is deeply liberating, because it means no one is in control. No one is pulling the strings. No one decided that suffering should exist. Now you might be thinking, if there's no creator, if everything just arises from causes and conditions, doesn't that make life meaningless? Doesn't that make everything random and chaotic? This is where the Buddha's teaching becomes practical. Because once you stop searching for cosmic origins, you start seeing the origins of your own experience. You notice, when I think angry thoughts, anger arises. When I cultivate compassion, peace arises. When I cling to things, suffering arises. When I let go, freedom arises. The universe operates by natural law, not divine decree. Cause and effect. Action and consequence. Karma isn't punishment from a cosmic judge. It's simply the natural unfolding of causes you set in motion. This is empowering, because it means you're not helpless. You're not a puppet of fate or a toy of the gods. You are a participant in the creation of your experience, moment by moment. The Buddha said, "You are your own master. There is no other master." Through self-discipline, you create your own refuge. This is the ultimate freedom. Not knowing who created the universe, but knowing how to create peace within yourself. Let's go deeper. There's a famous story in the Pali Canon where the Buddha is asked about the nature of ultimate reality. He remains silent. His silence wasn't confusion. It was teaching. Because ultimate reality cannot be captured in words. It cannot be explained by concepts. It can only be experienced directly. The Zen tradition later called this the finger pointing at the moon. You can point at the moon all day, but pointing isn't the moon. Words about the universe aren't the universe. Ideas about creation aren't creation. The truth isn't in the explanation. It's in the experience. It's not in the words, but in the silent space between them. It's not in the beginning of the universe, but in the clarity of this present moment. Right now, here. This is what the Buddha meant when he taught meditation. Not as a way to reach some distant enlightenment, but as a way to wake up to what's already here. The universe isn't something that happened in the past. It's happening now. You don't need to travel anywhere to find it. You don't need ancient texts or special knowledge. You just need to stop, breathe, look, listen. The entire cosmos is unfolding in this single breath. So where does this leave us? We live in a culture obsessed with answers. We want certainty. We want someone or something to explain why we're here and where we came from. We scroll through our phones looking for meaning. We read books promising the secrets of the universe. We debate endlessly about who's right and who's wrong. But the Buddha offers something different. Not answers, but a way of being. Not beliefs, but direct seeing. Not faith in a creator, but trust in the process of awakening. He said, "Don't believe anything just because I said it. Don't believe in traditions just because they've been handed down. Don't believe in scriptures just because they're old. Test everything through your own experience. See for yourself what leads to suffering and what leads to freedom. This is radical empiricism. This is spiritual science. The Buddha wasn't asking you to believe in dependent origination. He was inviting you to observe it directly, to watch your own mind creating and destroying worlds with every thought, to notice how clinging causes pain, to discover how letting go brings peace. The universe isn't a riddle to be solved. It's a reality to be lived. And here's something fascinating. Modern physics is beginning to echo what the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Quantum mechanics shows us that particles don't exist independently. They exist only in relationship, only through observation, only in context. The observer and the observed are inseparable. Time isn't a fixed line moving from past to future. It's relative, flexible, interconnected. The universe isn't made of solid, separate things. It's made of processes, probabilities, waves of potential collapsing into temporary forms. Sound familiar? This is dependent origination in scientific language. The Buddha didn't have particle accelerators or space telescopes. But through deep meditation, through direct observation of consciousness itself, he saw the same fundamental truth. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is empty of independent existence. Everything arises together, mutually dependent, infinitely interconnected. This doesn't mean the universe is an illusion. It means the way we usually think about the universe, as a collection of separate objects created by a separate creator, is an illusion. The reality is far more mysterious and beautiful than our stories about it. Let me bring you back to where we started. The silence. That vast, infinite silence the Buddha encountered when he awakened. It's not the silence of absence. It's the silence of fullness. It's not empty nothingness. It's pregnant potential. Every sound arises from silence and returns to silence. Every form emerges from emptiness and dissolves back into emptiness. Every universe, every galaxy, every thought, every breath, dancing in and out of this infinite space. The Buddha pointed to this silence, not because he had nothing to say, but because he had everything to show. When you touch this silence yourself, when you sit quietly and let all the questions fall away, when you stop demanding answers and simply rest in not knowing, something extraordinary happens. The separation between you and the universe dissolves. The need for a creator vanishes. The search for origins ends. Because you realize, you are already home. You were never separate. You were never lost. The universe doesn't need to be explained because you are the universe explaining itself to itself. This is the great mystery. This is the great freedom. Not in knowing where it all came from, but in being fully present to where you are right now. Let's explore this concept of dependent origination more deeply, because it's the key to understanding Buddha's view of the universe. Imagine you're holding a flower. Beautiful, fragile, temporary. Where did this flower come from? You might say, from a seed. But that seed came from another flower. And that flower came from soil, water, sunlight, and countless microorganisms. The soil came from decomposed matter. The water came from rain. The rain came from evaporated oceans. The sun's energy came from nuclear fusion. And we could trace this back infinitely. There is no point where you can say, here, this is where it all started. Now take it further. This flower exists because a bee pollinated it. That bee exists because flowers provided nectar. The flowers exist because bees spread pollen. Which came first? Neither. They co-arise. They mutually depend on each other. This is the Buddha's insight. The universe is not a chain with a first link. It's a web with no beginning and no end. Every point connects to every other point. Every cause is also an effect. Every effect becomes a cause. Nothing stands alone. Nothing is independent. Not even God, if such a being exists, could stand outside this web. Because to create something, you must interact with it. And interaction means dependence. Two things depending on each other. The Buddha saw this clearly. And he realized, the question, who created the universe, assumes a creator separate from creation. But nothing is separate from anything else. There is only this vast, interconnected, ever-flowing process of becoming. Here's something crucial that the Buddha understood about human psychology. We torture ourselves with unanswerable questions. We lie awake at night wondering, why does the universe exist instead of nothing? Who am I really? What happens after death? Is there a God? These questions seem profound. They seem important. But the Buddha called them thickets of views. Dense forests where you get lost and can never find your way out. Why? Because these questions are based on false assumptions. They assume there's a separate self that can be pinned down and defined. They assume time is absolute and linear. They assume existence and non-existence are the only two options. But reality doesn't work that way. The Buddha gave a famous teaching called the 14 Unanswerable Questions. A monk named Vakagata came to him and asked, does the self exist after death? Does it not exist? Does it both exist and not exist? Does it neither exist nor not exist? The Buddha refused to answer any of them. Vakagata was frustrated. Why won't you answer? He demanded. The Buddha replied with another question. If there's a fire burning in front of you and someone asks, where does the fire go when it goes out? How would you answer? Vakagata thought about it. The question doesn't apply. Fire doesn't go anywhere. It simply ceases when the fuel is exhausted. Exactly, said the Buddha. The same applies to these cosmic questions. They don't apply because they're based on wrong assumptions about how reality works. Now let's make this personal. Because this isn't just abstract philosophy. This teaching about the universe has profound implications for how you live your life every single day. When you truly understand that nothing has a fixed, independent essence, something revolutionary happens. You stop clinging so tightly. Think about it. Why do we suffer? Because we hold on to things, people, ideas, and identities as if they were permanent. We say, this is mine. This is who I am. This must never change. But everything is already changing. Every cell in your body is being replaced. The person you were 10 years ago is literally not here anymore. Your thoughts arise and pass away like clouds. Your emotions come and go like weather. Nothing stays. Nothing can stay. Because nothing is solid or separate enough to remain unchanged. When the Buddha taught that the universe has no fixed origin, he was also teaching that you have no fixed self. There's no unchanging soul standing apart from experience. There's just experience itself, flowing, changing, arising from causes and disappearing into effects. This isn't nihilism. This isn't saying you don't exist. You obviously exist in this moment. But you exist as a process, not as a thing. You exist as a verb, not as a noun. You are happening right now, just like the universe is happening right now. And when you see this clearly, when you really get it in your bones, you relax. You stop trying to control everything. You stop demanding that life match your expectations. The Buddha's approach to the question of creation reflects his famous middle way. He didn't say the universe was created. He didn't say it wasn't created. He pointed to a third option that transcends both extremes. In his time, there were two dominant philosophical camps. The eternalists believed the universe and the soul were permanent, unchanging, created by a supreme being. The nihilists believed everything was random, meaningless, and would be completely annihilated at death. The Buddha rejected both views. He said, the truth is neither eternal nor annihilated. It's neither existing nor non-existing. It's beyond these conceptual categories. This is difficult for the rational mind to grasp. We want things to be one way or another. Either something exists or it doesn't. Either the universe was created or it wasn't. But the Buddha is pointing to reality as it actually is, before we divide it with concepts. Consider this. Is a wave separate from the ocean? You can say yes, it has a distinct shape and movement. You can say no, it's just water temporarily formed. Both answers are true and false at the same time. The wave is a process, not a thing. It arises from conditions, exists temporarily, and returns to the ocean. You can't pinpoint when the wave began or when it truly ended. The universe is like this. Not a thing that was created, but a process that is continuously manifesting. Not separate from you, but not identical to you either. The middle way transcends logic while being perfectly logical. So how do you actually realize this truth for yourself? How do you move from intellectual understanding to direct experience? This is where meditation becomes essential. The Buddha didn't teach meditation as relaxation or stress relief. Those are pleasant side effects. He taught meditation as a tool for investigating reality directly. When you sit in meditation and watch your breath, you're not just calming your mind. You're observing the universe in action. You're watching creation happening right now. Notice, a breath arises. You didn't create it. You didn't decide to breathe. It just happened. Causes and conditions came together. Your body needed oxygen, and the breath arose. Then it passes away. Where did it go? It didn't go anywhere. It simply ceased, transformed into carbon dioxide, absorbed by plants, part of the endless cycle. This is dependent origination witnessed directly. Now watch a thought arise. It appears out of nowhere. You weren't thinking it, and then suddenly you were. Where did it come from? Can you find its origin? Can you pinpoint the exact moment it began? No. It arose from conditions, past experiences, brain chemistry, environmental triggers, countless factors you're not even aware of. And then it dissolves. Another thought arises. Another dissolves. This is your mind creating and destroying worlds every second. This is the universe creating and destroying itself. You are not separate from this process. You are this process. And when you see it clearly, without interpretation or judgment, you understand what the Buddha understood. There is no creator because there is no separation between creating and being created. There is only this eternal now, this flowing presence, this thusness. Let me offer you something practical to take with you. The Buddha's teaching about creation isn't meant to replace one belief system with another. It's meant to free you from the tyranny of belief itself. You don't have to believe in dependent origination. You don't have to accept that the universe has no beginning. You don't have to agree with anything I've said today. Instead, investigate. Look at your own experience. The next time you feel anxious, pause and trace that anxiety back. What triggered it? A thought? Where did that thought come from? A fear? Where did that fear originate? You'll discover an endless chain of causes, and you'll never find a first cause. The next time you feel joy, do the same thing. Where did it come from? What conditions allowed it to arise? Can you hold onto it? Can you make it permanent? You'll see that you can't, because it's not a thing you possess. It's a temporary arising, dependent on causes, destined to pass. This is the practice. This is how you verify the Buddha's teaching for yourself. Not through faith, but through direct observation. Not through belief, but through seeing. And as you practice this, something profound happens. You stop identifying so strongly with your thoughts, your emotions, your story about who you are. You start to see yourself as part of this vast, interconnected dance of existence. You realize that the question, who created the universe, is the same as asking, who am I? And both questions dissolve in the face of direct experience. There is no separate self to be found. There is no separate creator to be found. There is only this moment, complete in itself, needing nothing, lacking nothing, perfectly expressing the mystery of existence. Before we end, I want to leave you with one final reflection. The Buddha sat under that tree 2,500 years ago, and he saw something that changed human consciousness forever. He saw that suffering is optional. Not pain, not death, not loss, but the suffering we add to these experiences through our clinging, our resistance, our demand that reality be different than it is. And he traced that suffering back to one fundamental delusion, the belief in separation. We think we're separate from the universe. We think we're separate from each other. We think we need a creator because we feel created. We feel like objects in a world of objects, and objects need makers. But this is the illusion. You are not an object. You are the universe experiencing itself subjectively. You are the cosmos that has become conscious of itself. You don't need to search for meaning because you are meaning in motion. You don't need to find God because you are the divine manifesting as human experience. This isn't arrogance. This is humility. Because if you are the universe, then so is everyone else. So is every tree, every animal, every particle of dust dancing in sunlight. We are all expressions of the same vast mystery, all waves in the same infinite ocean. The question isn't who created the universe. The question is, can you wake up to what you already are? Can you live from that awakening? Can you treat yourself and others with the reverence deserved by manifestations of the infinite? This is Buddha's invitation. Not to believe something new, but to see what has always been true. Not to worship a creator, but to recognize yourself as both the created and the creating, inseparable, eternal, free. Thank you for being here. Thank you for questioning. Thank you for seeking. Now go and discover the answer that cannot be spoken. Go and live the truth that cannot be taught. The universe is waiting to recognize itself in you.